Good morning. Today is Monday, and I'm really happy to be here with all of you, continuing our discussions on You Are the Universe, discovering your cosmic self and why it matters. And I thank you once again for helping expand this conversation. Thank you for supporting the book. Thank you for engaging with me every day, and thank you for the feedback that I get from you every day as well. So today's question is actually from Jennifer L., who's very active here on these discussion boards, and always keeping it lively and expanding our awareness as well. So thank you, Jennifer L. Her question is actually phrased in a very long email, and I will not read the email right now. Just get to the heart of her question. And basically she is commenting on a post I've done previously, which outlined all the theories of consciousness, and of course ended with my view that reality is non-dual. But she basically says, correct me if I'm wrong, that all constructs are in a sense valid. So here's my answer, very short answer. All constructs are all constructs about consciousness are equally valid and equally invalid. Remember that constructs and theories are mental phenomena. So all constructs are mental, all theories are mental, and mind itself is an activity in consciousness. Once again, all theories are mental constructs, and mind itself is an activity in consciousness. Moreover, the activity that we call mind is a result of programming or conditioning or experience. So a child is born, and then the conditioning starts. Before that, the child is consciousness and all its possibilities. And then the conditioning starts. You are Deepak, that's your name. You're Indian. You were born in the Hindu family, and your father is a doctor. And suddenly, all these labels create a mind. And then the mind tries to figure out its source, which is consciousness. So you can see that the mind is limited. And if consciousness is infinite possibilities, then a finite mind cannot explain consciousness. It can do its best to describe consciousness, but it cannot explain it. And here is something even more important, and I hope you will reflect on this. There is no explanation for consciousness. There is no explanation for consciousness. Now, I'll elaborate on that. There is no explanation for existence. Why do we exist? There is no explanation for it. We can make up an explanation, but that doesn't mean that there is an explanation. So there's no explanation for consciousness, there's no explanation for existence, and ultimately there's no explanation for the awareness of existence. In other words, there's no explanation for anything. And therefore I think explanation is a silly word. it probably would be great if this word was not part of any language. We do describe phenomena, and we then mistake the description for the explanation. But there's really no explanation for any phenomenon that we describe, even hypothetically. If we describe the Big Bang, there's no explanation for the Big Bang. There are theories, and those are mental constructs, eternal inflation, chaotic inflation, multiverses, observer effect, on and on and on and on. None of these are actually explanations. They are theoretical mental constructs which describe how a phenomenon might occur, but they never describe actually in the deeper sense why that phenomena or phenomenon is. So based on this, we can say all theories of consciousness are true for the person who's embedded in that mental construct. And hence there is no privileged position for any construct. But the constructs therefore are valid and equally invalid. Consciousness by itself is acausal. Acausal means without cause. Consciousness by itself is irreducible. You can't reduce it to anything. So, people endlessly argue about goddesses, says there are different states of consciousness. Yes, but consciousness itself is not a state. Okay, consciousness itself is not a state. It modifies itself into a state. Right now, we're calling that state waking state, or we can call it dream state, or we can call it deep sleep state, or we can call it, we've created these constructs: transcendental consciousness, cosmic consciousness, God consciousness, unity consciousness, all very useful, but still constructs. Consciousness itself is not a state, it's prior to all states. So consciousness is acausal, without cause. It is irreducible, you cannot divide it or multiply it. It is the source of all experience, but if described as an experience, it can only be called awareness of awareness. So consciousness can be experienced as the manifest, which we call experience, mental experience, perceptual experience, or it can be unmanifest, which means it is not modifying itself into experience, but nevertheless is. So normally we don't experience what's happening inside our body, right? You don't experience your heartbeat unless you pay attention to it. You don't experience your immune system. You don't experience the digestive processes that are going on. According to science, there are almost 100 trillion cells in the body, which is more than all the stars in the Milky Way galaxy. Each cell is doing trillions of things a second, and every cell instantly correlates its activity with every other cell. And you don't even know it. You know it only when something goes wrong. And then there's discomfort, there's pain, there's suffering, etc. When consciousness, for some reason, has been interfered with in its spontaneous expression. And the spontaneous expression of consciousness is that it is self-regulating, that it is self-organizing, that it is self-evolving, that it expresses itself in complementarities, mind and matter, body and environment, organism and environment, all that. But all those are also constructs. All those are also constructs. Does consciousness create matter, while in the deeper reality there's no such thing as matter. Matter is the interpretation of experience in consciousness. The experience of hardness, the experience of size and shape and density, the experience of structure, the experience of boundaries, the experience basically that is a modification of sense perceptions as thoughts and feelings and emotions and desires and sense perceptions. So consciousness doesn't create matter because there's no such thing as matter. Does matter create consciousness? How could it if it doesn't actually exist, if matter itself is the interpretation of an experience? So all there is consciousness and experience, modifying itself as experience. So when we realize this, we realize that only consciousness can describe consciousness. The human attempt to explain consciousness is futile because any explanation, any theory, is an activity of the mind which is itself an activity of consciousness. The finite cannot explain the infinite. Once again, the finite cannot explain the infinite. It's like a dream trying to explain a dream. Okay, it's impossible. Okay, but consciousness as the source of all existence, as the source of all experience, as the source of that which we call mind, body, and universe, can be comprehended, can be understood, can be experienced, and when it is, then there is also the realization that it cannot be explained. It can be described with limitations of language, and language itself is an activity in consciousness. So let me come to this again in a few seconds and complete the thought process that I have started, okay? Let's do that in 15 seconds. So, all theories are in consciousness alone. So, consciousness attempts to explain itself through the human mind, which is an activity of consciousness. There is no need to explain consciousness. If it is the ontological primitive, then it is acausal, as Max Planck said. As Max Planck said, you cannot get behind consciousness. Corey and 22 others just shared your video. I truly appreciate this, Corey, and thank you. Okay, so go back to basics. Consciousness is without cause. Being without cause, it is not in space-time. Space-time are experiences in consciousness. Being spaceless and timeless, it is eternal. If you are consciousness, then you are eternal. But you not as a body-mind, which is a modified form of consciousness, which is basically evanescent, a blink of an eye in the vast expanse of eternity. But you as consciousness are eternal. You as consciousness is not subject to birth or death. So going back to that beautiful, those beautiful stanzas in the Bhagavad Gita, the real you is without form, but makes the experience of form possible. And therefore, at every cremation, when it's chanted, then those stanzas are translated as follows. The real you is consciousness, and it is infinite, it is eternal, it is without birth or death. Water cannot wet it, wind cannot dry it, weapons cannot shatter it, fire cannot burn it. It is eternal. Thou art that, I am that, all this is that, that alone is. Tat Tvam Asi. Fatima Farah. Thank you. And all those who are sharing this, thank you very much. Thank you very much. So, eternal. Fire cannot burn it. Weapons cannot shatter it. Air cannot dry it. Wind cannot dry it. Water cannot wet it. Eternal and unborn. Aham Brahmasmi. Aham Brahmasmi. Shivoham. Shivoham. Different ways of saying the ineffable. The ineffable. I love to quote Rumi when he says, God's language is silence. Everything else is poor translation. So this is at best a poor translation. But we can experience consciousness. We can experience consciousness as unbounded love. We can experience consciousness as awareness of awareness. We can experience consciousness as being. Sat Chit Ananda. Sat means truth, Chit means knowing, Ananda, eternal bliss. Okay? So the experience is there, but it's not an experience of something or some phenomenon. It's the awareness in which all experience comes and to which all experience returns. It's being. Existence and awareness of existence are the same thing. Okay, because if there's no awareness of existence, then for practical purposes, there is no existence. That's why resting in being, resting in awareness, resting in stillness, resting in silence is knowingness. Knowingness. What is it? As Rupert Spira very elegantly asks, what is it that knows your experience? What is it that knows your experience of that which you call your mind? What is it that knows the experience of that which you call a body? What is it that knows the experience of that which you call the universe? I say that which you call because as soon as you call it mind, body, universe, you've created a construct. Construct of what? Construct of yourself. The universe and every object in the universe, including your body, including your mind, is actually a symbolic expression of yourself. That's why. Keep coming back to you are the universe. Steve Peebles and 30 others just shared your video. Thank you very much, Steve. That's why, literally, you are the universe. The universe is a symbolic expression of yourself. And as a symbol, it's not an object of experience. It's a phenomenon of you curving back within yourself as an activity. Again, to quote the Upanishads, Prakritim Swam Vashtabai Vishrajami Puna Puna. Hey, Valeria Giselle Asensio in Argentina. Good to see you here. Okay. Prakritim Swam Vashtabai Vishrajami Puna Puna. Curving back within myself, I create again and again. I curve back within myself and create thoughts and emotions, which then I call mind. I curve back within myself and create sense perceptions, which I then call body and universe. But it's me all the way. And me is not a person, because the person itself is a construct. The person itself is a process in being. This is so wonderful when you ultimately get to experience it, because in this experience, which is a non-experience in the traditional sense, in this experience, which is a non-experience in the traditional sense, there is only joy, there is only love, there is only deep compassion, deep knowing, deep understanding, and deep peace, the peace that passes understanding. It's therefore been called bliss. Consciousness doesn't need anything to feel fulfilled. It is already fulfilled. It's the beginning of the journey. It's present during the journey, and it's present at the end of the journey. That poem by T.S. Eliot. We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of our exploring is to arrive where we started from and know the place for the first time. Know the place for the first time. The only response to this existence is not only total astonishment and bewilderment, but deep humility, deep gratitude, deep reverence for existence, and deep ineffable love that cannot even be expressed. Erica says I should post this poem. You can look it up. T.S. Eliot's one of his most famous poems. I'll repeat it though. We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of our exploring is to arrive where we started from and know the place for the first time. Sandra says every moment should be the first time. That's beautiful. That's also a part of the Shiva Sutras. It says, step out of the river of memory and conditioning and see the world as if for the first time, and you will be redeemed. You will resurrect yourself. True meaning of resurrection. There's another beautiful Shiva Sutra where Shiva is explaining, or describing, I should say, explanation is not the best word, saying, Shiva says, meditate on your body as the universe and as having the nature of awareness. Meditate on your body as the universe and as having the nature of awareness. Well, I think I'll stop there. There's a lot here to reflect upon, but ultimately reflect on who is it that reflects? Who or what is it that wants to know? Who or what is it that wants to know how it knows? Who or what is it that wants to know what it knows? And then ultimately just surrender to what is. Surrender to what is. Krishnamurti called it choiceless awareness. In choiceless awareness, the right response will come to you for whatever situation or circumstance exists in the now. You won't have to plan for it. You won't need to stress about it. You won't need to think about it. It will happen as the seasons happen, as the seeds sprout into plants and trees and fruits and flowers and seeds all over again, as the sun rises and as the sun sets, and as the body takes care of itself in every now. Do less, accomplish more. Ultimately, do nothing and accomplish everything. Bufiti Elmer Martinez, thank you for sharing.